everyone, Serena here. And if you've been outside lately, you can feel it. The temperatures are rising fast, the air is drying out, and everything just starts to feel a little more fragile this time of year. Arizona doesn't always ease us into fire season. Sometimes it feels like we go from comfortable to high risk almost overnight. Grasses start curing out, leaves dry, winds pick up, and suddenly the landscape is holding a lot more potential for fire than it did just a few weeks ago. So now is the time to start thinking about being fire-wise. And I think that phrase gets thrown around a lot, but not always explained in a way that actually helps homeowners understand what to do. What does fire mitigation really mean? What does it look like on your property? And how does tree care actually play into reducing fire risk? Because this is not about panic, and it's not about clearing everything out. And it's definitely not destroying your landscape. It's about understanding how fire behaves and making intentional decisions before anything ever happens. So in this video, we're going to break that down in a real practical way.
When we talk about fire mitigation, we're really talking about fuel. Fire needs three things to exist: heat, oxygen, and fuel. We don't have control over weather patterns or ignition sources in most cases, but we do have control over how much fuel is present on a property and how that fuel is arranged. And that second part, how it's arranged, is where most people underestimate the risk. Because it's not just about how much vegetation you have, it's about where it is, how dense it is, how dry it is, and how connected it is. A property can have a lot of vegetation and still be relatively low risk if it's well spaced, well maintained, and not allowing fire to move easily through it. On the other hand, a property with less vegetation can actually be higher risk if everything is tightly connected, full of dead material, and positioned in a way that allows fire to travel quickly. So being fire-wise means stepping back and looking at your property as a system. You're asking, where is the fuel? How is it connected? How would fire move through this space if it started at the edge of an ember? Once you start thinking that way, mitigation becomes less about random cleanup and more about strategy.
And that strategy really starts with understanding that your property isn't just one thing, it's layered. When we walk a site, we're looking at three main levels of fuel. We're looking at what's on the ground, we're looking at what's in the mid-layer, like shrubs and smaller vegetation, and then we're looking at what's happening up in the trees. Each of those layers play a completely different role in how fire behaves. The ground layer is often where fire starts and spreads. The mid-layer can carry that fire upward, and the canopy is where things become much more intense and much harder to control. So when we talk about being fire-wise, we're really talking about how those layers interact with each other. Are they separated, or are they connected in a way that allows fire to climb and spread? Because if everything is touching or close enough to act like it is, fire has a clear path, and that's where risk starts to build.
One of the most important concepts in fire mitigation is ladder fuels. Ladder fuels are what allow the fire to move vertically from the ground up into the canopy. So imagine fire starting in dry grass. That produces heat and flame length. If there are shrubs or dense vegetation above that grass, the fire can move into that layer. From there, if you have low-hanging dead tree branches or dense understory growth, the fire can continue upward. Once that fire reaches the canopy, you're dealing with a completely different level of intensity. You can get faster spread, more heat, and increased ember production, which can carry fire far beyond the original ignition point. So one of the main goals of mitigation is to break that vertical connection. That might mean removing lower limbs where appropriate. It might mean thinning out dense shrubs beneath trees. It might mean removing dead or highly flammable material that sits between those layers. We're not trying to eliminate vegetation. We're trying to interrupt the pathway, because fire doesn't need everything to connect perfectly. It just needs enough connection to keep moving. And ladder fuels are one of the easiest ways for that to happen.
Then we have surface fuels, and this is one of the most overlooked pieces. Surface fuels are everything sitting on the ground: dry grasses, leaves, pine needles, small branches, bark, debris. It's a lot. It's the kind of stuff people see every day, so it starts to feel normal. But in fire conditions, this layer is incredibly important. This is where fire often starts. This is what carries it across the ground. This is what builds heat intensity. And once enough heat builds at the surface, it increases the likelihood that fire will move into those higher layers we were just talking about. So managing surface fuels is one of the most simplest and most effective things homeowners can do. That doesn't mean scraping your property bare. It means reducing excessive buildup, especially around your home, under trees, along structures, and anywhere fire could gain momentum. Because small fuels, under the right conditions, can create big problems.
The other side of this is horizontal fuel continuity. That's how easily fire can move across your property from one plant to another. If vegetation is dense, crowded, or overlapping, fire has a continuous path. If tree canopies are touching, if shrubs are packed tightly together, if there's no spacing between vegetation, then fire can spread quickly without interruption. Spacing breaks that continuity. It creates gaps that make it harder for fire to move efficiently. So part of mitigation is evaluating which trees or shrubs are too close, which ones are contributing to overcrowding, and which ones can remain without increasing risk. Sometimes that means thinning, sometimes it means selective removal, sometimes it just means adjusting structure through pruning. And this is where experience matters, because not every tree needs to go. Not every dense area is automatically a problem. It's about understanding which parts of the landscape are actually contributing to fire behavior and which parts can remain as a part of a healthier system.
And this is usually where homeowners pause, because they hear words like thinning, removal, spacing, and it starts to feel like they're about to lose the entire character of their property. But that's not what good mitigation looks like. A well-managed property can still feel full, still feel natural, still have shade and beauty and life. The difference is intention. Instead of everything growing however it wants, you're shaping the space so it's not working against you. So you still have trees, you still have structure, you still have that sense of place. But it's not creating unnecessary risk. There's a difference between a natural landscape and a neglected one. And fire mitigation helps define that line in a way that protects both the property and the ecosystem. And even though we're out here in the desert, this is exactly what surrounds so many homes in Arizona. Defensible space is where all this starts to come together around the home itself. This is the area where reducing fuel and managing vegetation has the biggest impact on structure protection. It's not just about distance. It's about what's happening within that space. So these are the things we're looking at. Are there dead branches extending over the roof? Is there debris accumulating in the gutters? Are there shrubs or plants directly against the structure? Are there dead limbs hanging over access points? And then we look outward. Is vegetation dense and continuous? Is there a clear path for fire to move toward the home? And is there ladder fuel present near the structure? Defensible space creates a buffer. It reduces flame contact, lowers heat intensity, and improves the chances of the home withstanding ember exposure. Because in many cases, it's not a wall of fire that destroys a structure. It's embers finding something receptive close to the home. So what you do in that immediate space matters more than people think.
Tree health is another layer that ties into all this. A stressor declining tree can contribute more to fire risk, especially if it's got dead material in the canopy, structural issues, or is already struggling with drought or pests. We see that a lot in the Verde Valley. But mitigation isn't about aggressively cutting everything back. Good arboriculture is about balance. We're reducing fuel and risk while still supporting the long-term health of the tree. That means understanding how much can be pruned without stressing the tree, how different species respond, and how site conditions affect overall health. Because poorly done mitigation can create new problems. Over pruning can weaken trees, improper cuts can lead to decay, removing the wrong trees can change microclimates and stress what remains. So this is where science really matters. You're not just managing fire risk, you're managing a living system. One more thing I want to mention that's really important. We've been getting a lot of calls from clients who get the dreaded letter from their insurance companies. And they have really strict guidelines of what the insurance company needs to see in order for the client to keep their policy. It's scary. And so we get calls and we get shown the letter and the homeowner doesn't seem to know even where to start. And that's totally fine. What we're describing right now isn't for you to fear anything. It's to understand that there are solutions. It's relatively easy to meet the requirements of an insurance company if you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Understanding fire and ladder fuels helps you understand how you can mitigate your property by also abiding by their rules. And every company is different. Some are very strict, some are relatively loose. It's important that if you don't know, to hire somebody that does and to have that consultation and educate yourself. Some houses that we've seen, especially in the Sedona area, were built around these old trees. And now the insurance companies are wanting them to take these trees out. That's scary, right? So there are things that we can do to help you keep your trees healthy, but also keep your insurance. It's really important for you to relax as soon as you get that letter. Call somebody that knows and have them come out and discuss the options. And then you can make an educated decision with that professional so that you can move forward, keeping your trees and your property safe.
At the end of the day, being fire-wise is really about awareness. It's about looking at your property differently, not just seeing trees and plants, but understanding how everything connects, how fire could move through it, and where your risks actually are. And the goal isn't fear, it's preparation. It's making decisions now while you have time instead of reacting when conditions are already at their worst. Because once everything is dry and the wind is moving, people don't wish they had done more, they wish they had done it sooner. If you're not sure where to start, that's okay. That's exactly why we're here. Thanks for tuning in and watching. If you have more questions, comments, or any concerns, feel free to reach out to us. Like and subscribe to follow along with more. Climate High Tree Experts, professional tree care, backed by science.